Welcome back to another episode of Taboo Tea Time with Kai, where we dive into the tough taboo conversations needed to heal and grow into the beautiful humans we were meant to be. So today I am beyond honored to welcome a guest whose resilience, courage, and commitment to healing have not only transformed her own life, but have really paved the path forward for others facing unimaginable challenges. Rafiah Maxie-Cole is a licensed clinical social worker, founder of the Soul Survivors of Chicago, and a mother who has journeyed through the depths of a personal tragedy. After the heartbreaking loss of her 19-year-old son by way of suicide, Rafiah made a profound decision to transform her pain into purpose, propelling herself into a mission that would break barriers and shed light on a stigma surrounding mental health in the Black community. Rafia's work is deeply impactful, addressing head-on the gaps in the mental health system and offering hope, awareness, and support to families facing similar struggles. She bravely tells her story to help others feel seen and understood, tackling the systematic challenges and cultural taboos that too often silence us. Her mission is not only about advocacy, it's about healing and guiding communities towards open, honest conversations about loss, trauma, and the need for accessible mental health care. Rafiah, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Thank you so much. This is such an honor to be a part of Tea Time. Oh man, I just can't wait to get in our topic. And thank you so very much for your time.
Yes, of course. You could just share a bit about your story with us and really just like what inspired you to start Soul Survivors of Chicago.
Yeah. Well, you know, as I look back in what occurred, I think it was just divine order. Because as I look now, it's kind of like I understand my urgency then because of what I felt the stigma would be, knowing that I lost my son by way of suicide and that I wanted the community to know that this is something we got to talk about. I know for myself and my family what we've experienced and never talked about when it comes to this topic. And I've been in school and classrooms with people who have also had issues and certain, challenges. So to come to this reality that I would be working and, advocating for suicide prevention really came after the loss of my son. It starts at really the age of 12 when he was bullied very badly, and we had no idea. Um, we eventually found out, and during that time, he tried to take his life because of the bullying being so bad. He said, I hate myself. And going through that mental health system was horrific in a lot of ways. And it led us to just being dropped and fumbled like a ball. And we ended up just trying to do things ourselves and so forth, and not knowing the impact of when someone attempts a suicide, there's a 99% chance that they will attempt sometimes again or still have other unresolved issues. And so, with my son taking his life and knowing what he meant to the community and what he meant just to me and those people around him, I knew that the legacy needed to be said, as well as the understanding that, it's okay to not be okay. And don't tell people you're okay when you're not okay, you know? Um, so, Soul Survivors of Chicago, a nonprofit organization based on suicide prevention awareness and the importance of mental health, we go out into the community. And I mean the isolated resource deserts. I'm in front of the liquor stores, in front of the laundromats, at the barbershop, in front of the nail salon, all the places our community is, and giving out the information when it comes to mental health. We give out gun locks, those kind of things.
Mm.
And then we also have the great project of the Walking Purpose, because I came in my son's room after everybody left and
Mhm.
all the cards had stopped, all the phone calls had ceased, and I'm in his room as we speak. And I sat on his bed and I said, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I saw his shoe. And I said, wouldn't it be great if I could take Jamal's shoe, clean it and sanitize it, put his name in it, and gift it to someone with understanding, hey, this is my son's shoe. I know you've been in crisis, but walk in this shoe. In everything you do, you'll be doing it with the walking of somebody's soul who's no longer here. I'll never have grandchildren. I'll never see him graduate from anything. But when you put that shoe on and other shoes that we've collected throughout the United States with the name of that person, it brings a purpose. You walking in purpose. It's not just about you that day. It's you and Jamal, you and Anthony, and you and Jabari, whoever it is that we have lost. That just brings a little protective factor to it. So that project is really sincere to us. And then lastly, emergency resources. Because let me tell you something, when you lose someone, you're not thinking about no T-Mobile bill.
Right.
I couldn't even remember what the day was. So all the things that life brings on you, and you're in a crisis and you're financially trying to find things out, those become another crisis. And in our community, I think it's just really important to have those emergency support funds for those families who are in that stage at that time.
Mhm. That is beautiful. That's amazing. I can only imagine, and just thank you. I want to say that first because I think it can be so maybe easy to, sit and roll over and just sit in that for so long. And I just think that the fact that you were able to take that pain into purpose and look at a shoe and find inspiration in that is absolutely beautiful. And so I thank you for that. And so to get into that, how did you find that strength? Like, where did that come from to turn that grief into a mission for helping others?
That's such a good question. I have to give, honor to my God who has carried me each and every day because the grief is just unbearable. There's not a day that goes by I do not cry, or the silence in my house is so loud knowing that something's missing. And especially around holidays and birthdays and things that, I never thought would bring me 2 points like a school bus. Um, I have to think that God really played a big part in it. But I also want to say that the stages of grief really are some stages. There's some googa-muggas. And there's this one stage that comes around a lot. Sometimes it's called anger. And anger is not necessarily like a fighting kind of beat up thing. It's kind of like you've almost realized this has happened, and it gets to be a frustration. And that's where the power started with, because I felt like my son, you know, didn't live out the course of his life, and he didn't have to die. None of our children have to die. A lot of the things that I know we'll talk about, and disparities and all that have a big part, but if those things didn't exist, or if we had, I mean, he died 2 days after George Floyd. Let's keep it real.
Mhm.
2 days after George Floyd, 11 months after his high school graduation, 4 months into a pandemic, and 2 months into a Black Lives Matter movement. You're talking about a city that had protests in the expressways going on. It was mad crazy. So all of that is like the biggest gumbo pot of stuff. And I can only imagine that had the biggest part with my son. So looking at that trajectory and really seeing how that whole period and continuing to see trends now makes me feel like there is some obligation I have to have, for all of us who don't know what our lives are like now because we've never experienced this. Like, it's a new normal that's unbelievable. You
Mhm.
know, life gets real when you have a front row seat at a funeral.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were some of like the earlier challenges that you faced, both personally and in like launching the organization?
Well, there's no blueprint for this.
Yeah.
I haven't found the book. No one has written a spectacular grant to say this is how you do it and this is what we want. So really finding the pieces of how to do what I wanted and the purpose was an obstacle. Mainly because I'm talking about something that the Black community, when you talk about it, you can see it all in their face,
Mhm.
and how they feel. Some are really shocked, some are really passionate, some are really scared, all of that. And so to come out and do that is a fear factor for myself. So that was a challenge. But then having the courage and saying that, I know I'm out here alone, but I know I'm not by myself. There's got to be someone else. How does this happen? And it's happening, but where are we? What are we doing? Who's helping us? What can we
Mhm.
do? I went on Google, my sister, and I typed every word I could possibly think of to help me. Black girl, lost child, uh, need a group,
Mhm.
and the only thing that came up was one thing of a group. And I found out after 6 months of being in it, I was the only Black person of color in the group. And then as each chapter moved in different parts of the state, I was still the only Black person. So those were challenging things. Soul Survivors stands on a platform that there's not a lot of us doing it, but the research is suggesting that we need to talk about it. So
100%.
those were challenges. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And just saying that, like, in thinking that you're alone in a lot of these challenges, like, I think sometimes when we're in the depths of it, it feels like, oh, I'm alone. Like I'm the only one going through this thing when the reality is someone has gone through it before. And a lot of people don't talk about it, especially in the Black community. Like it is, like you said, like people will have a look on their face, like mental health, like just pray it away. And sometimes
Oh, yeah.
like 100%. Like I know the God I serve can do anything, but at the end of the day, I think God also made therapists and God, like made these people to help us while we are here. And so sometimes that is the struggle where people do feel so alone and do feel like they have no one to talk to. But people, talking about things more and having the tough conversations and making it a safe space where people don't feel judged is so crucial. So yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. So what do you see as some of like the biggest misconceptions about mental health in our communities?
I believe the biggest misconception is that um, you can actually differentiate between someone who is uh, sad, depressed, or with a mental health diagnosis versus someone who's not. Or that this word mental health, it has so many sticky issue kind of touchy points to people, they want to get away with it. I mean, away from it.
Mhm.
And on the point of, the reality that, we're talking about a subject that is so imperative because mental health is health. This is my command center, my brain. And if
Yeah,
it's not running well, I can't make my heart or my feelings or my spirit or my desires go in line because I'm not good up here, you know? And that's terrible for someone to really truly need to know I've got to let this out, this trauma, this experience I have, and have nobody to talk to about it, or don't know what to say or how to go about, speaking on it. Those things are tragic. So
yeah,
those are big misconceptions that we continue to wrestle with. And I know the language is getting better with mental wellness, and
right.
we're seeing more things going on with people getting involved with non-traditional methods of healing and circles, and I'm so grateful for that. I don't remember that back in the 80s,
Yeah,
growing up, and in the 70s. So yeah.
yeah. And why do you think that these conversations about suicide are so often avoided? Like, how can we create safe spaces for, you know, these conversations to be had?
Well, mainly it's such a scary subject.
Yeah.
Someone come to you and say, I want to die. You don't want them to die, but you may not know how to stop them from thinking
Mhm.
that way. So the tools and what to say. Oftentimes I tell people, I don't tell you I'm just okay. I'll tell you I'm a 6 out of 10 today or I'm feeling good highs or bad lows. I put context into it.
Right.
So having those conversations that are really asking those questions, you'll get some people don't feel, they think. So asking what they think versus what they feel, those
Mhm.
kind of
With
methods. So
that.
having those tools, helps a lot when you have those conversations with folks. But it is a scary thing to ask because not only do you may not know what to do, but oftentimes some people have the mythology of thinking that if you talk about it, you increase a person's chance to
Right.
move forward with an ideation. And that's statistically false. Having these conversations with someone who's having an ideation, you go into those next steps. Tell me this, if you were going to try that, do you have a plan, my brother, my sister? Yeah, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to take that, or I'm going to go get this. Then they've really thought it out. They're really contemplating. And then you get that support that because they came to you. They came to you and verbalized something, not just because it is a real thing, but I always feel it's like the saving grace. I just need one person to hear this. And I want them, I'm thinking that they will catch what I'm saying in my pain. So, yeah, knowing that when you're that protective factor for a person, and all of us got one, we all got it. A person, place, a thing. Sometimes it's even a pet, but it's something that keeps you making the purpose of this world a little bit more tangible when you're in that dark tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Can you just, like speak to the importance of mental health support and like what it means to create healing within our families and in our communities?
I really believe just having the courage to have those conversations is important. I feel like when we hit certain stages and milestones, we forget to share our story of how we got to that milestone with those behind us.
Mm.
And sometimes those in front of us forget to share for us to know how we can continue on. Um, those conversations are now being held in, lots of different platforms. Some are healthy, some are not. But there are moments where and you only know when you're connecting with your family, whether it's in your moments of celebration, all the way down to the moments of driving to a store, or listening to a music, or buying a shoe, or whatever it is, that the connection can happen. And I think that is the greatest space to have when it's just authentic and normal. And that's what I want to do with, soul survivors, to normalize the conversation of, today is a good and today is not a good, because I see it all in your face.
Mhm.
I see it in how you move. And emotionally intelligent people, all of us out there, even you included, can tell, and you want to be that part of that change. So, yeah, those conversations are imperative.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And how do you, I know obviously you have other children. Like how do you now then navigate those conversations with them and to make sure like what has this really been able to like teach you to then navigate further with your other children?
yeah. We're still walking in steps. I have a daughter.
Mm-hmm.
She was my second child, and Jamal was my first. And as a family, I feel that we can stay connected. Our therapy and outreach is really important. Having conversations like this is important. Inviting people to, learn more about, what we're doing and the importance of it is important. So with my family, I can only say that we continue to honor him because there's a sixth stage in grief called meaning. And all the pictures and things around, they could be in a box, they could be under a shelf, but we continue to honor him and his legacy, his birthday, balloon lift, and many other families. We do it in those kind of capacities. So yeah, that's a way that we continue to move in our life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you've mentioned that like the mental health system kind of, failed you, especially when this happened when Jamal was 12. Can you explain like what you mean by that? And yeah.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster I didn't know I was getting in line for. One, because I didn't want to go to that amusement park. I'll just keep it 100. Let's use analogies.
Mhm.
To be part of a system that I'm a social worker and I work and do this was a paradigm like another. And I really saw the other side of the desk. I
Mhm.
saw how they're understaffed. They always move around. COVID was going on, so you know it wasn't no in person much of anything. And then when you did get the appointment 60 days later, it's a chance, and it was a chance, and it did happen that the doctor retired. So now we're back to a square one, you know. And with all the things that happen in life, be life, and it just became where, what is this intervention, or is this just kind of, saying we did this, and that?
Mhm.
So, of course, when you feel like you've been kind of spun around the world and shook hands twice with people, I was on some, I'm going to stay close to my son, get him involved with great organization, Top Teens of America. He was all the way down to the president, very involved in the community and that kind of thing. And so it's just a natural curve that you always think happens, but reality, those still issues with depression and self-esteem, I believe they were very um, um, present and never did leave. I always say I think my son died at 12. He just lived to 19.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What role, as me being a young person, like what role do you think social media played in this? Because I think even for me, the role that social media plays in my life, can sometimes like I need to take a break because I know it's not the healthiest place for me. I think when I think about the real highlights of what people's life looks like, wow, it looks so amazing. Like people are just doing everything that they should be doing. They're like walking in their purpose. And I do, remember seeing that your daughter had said that he just felt like Jamal felt like he didn't have a purpose. And so I want to know like what you think that social media, plays in part of young people and not just Jamal's, but their mental health and how they go through life.
Well, I believe it has one of the most strongest influences that's so silently um, captured without a youth even knowing. When I look at some of the posts, and I remember being able to get in his phone, just seeing some of the things that kind of emulated certain stories, the challenges that they would have to do certain things, and maybe the pressure of everybody doing it. It just kind of makes you feel like you were, in my mind, just basically, following somebody else's direction. So I can only say for my son that it was a definite shift from the fork in the road. And during COVID, it became more and more um, like a normality because there was nothing else we could do. Couldn't come over people's houses, they couldn't come here. We didn't have school, we were always on a screen talking to someone. So it just became like a normal part of your life that you filled in when, everything else had left you. And so naturally, you just absorb what comes with it. And I think that, some of the messages and things that were going on, you know, in the culture itself was, just impactful for him. Yeah.
Sorry, what changes do you hope to see in, the mental health system or just the systems that serve Black families, especially like facing loss and trauma? Like, what do you want to see that's different that you didn't get to experience?
I would love to see more um, an embracing of a couple of things. For one, those school systems, those institutions that have a lot of investment in our children really need to involve those persons in the community and those with lived experience to the table. We're on the menu when it comes to the policies, we're on the menu when it comes to statistics. But when it really comes down to like knowing what our children are saying when they come home, because they come home different, I think it's time for us to be able to talk a little bit more and be part of those changes and not be told we can come when we want to come.
Mm.
The second thing I think that we need to be very vigilant of is understanding that it takes a village to raise a child, but a child to teach a village. And my son has taught me so much in this loss. And I look at children now and I watch and I see their trends, what they're thinking, and how influential they are. And I just believe that you know we have to take a better look at how we can incorporate what's involved in their lives as well. Their communication, for example. If you were to sit in front of somebody who was 18 years old and just have a normal conversation, would you be able to? Because the lingo and the jargon is so much that it's like, wait, what does lit mean again? No, wait,
Yeah.
what does such and such? Okay, decent means this, but this don't mean, he's so Brad or whatever, and I
Yeah.
guess
Alpha, Sigma. I'm like, what? What's
and
happening?
don't get me going on the what's the acronyms and the
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a
IFTs.
lot.
I'm like, I don't know what anybody's saying anymore, but it's important that I do know, you
Yeah.
know.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. So for those listening who have experienced loss or mental health challenges, like what do you want to say to them? And where at like what point or like what do they need to do next? Like if they're just feeling these ways, then what?
Mm. Well, for those who are experiencing mental health challenges, that there is somebody every night thinking about you, and that is me. And I think about you for various reasons because I know that that tunnel that you're thinking about and that you're in really feels like it's the real, it's really the illusion. The light is real. And so just holding on, being able to be with the support, being understanding that you really do matter and that suicide is permanent, problems are temporary. I would encourage you to find that protective factor, whatever it is, and make sure that that is close to you and is held to you. So when those ideations comes, that you're reminded of that. Um, I also want to say that um, knowing that as a community, sharing is caring. We can share about what's the latest and who's got the cheapest, but when it comes to a resource that'll help somebody out, it's imperative that we continue to spread the word and talk about that. I think our interest is always guided, and then as it becomes popular, it becomes the thing. That's why we have so many TV shows that show this and show that.
Yeah.
So show interest in these things that I know that you have interest in. And then also for those who are, facing mental health challenges or have been in the suicidal ideation part, understanding that there are supports out here and we're trying our best to make sure that they're accessible, that they're obtainable, but do not be ashamed to say, today is not the best day or I am not okay, because silence is not golden all the time. It really ain't.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And so how can someone on the other side of that, like how does someone support someone who may be grieving or struggling with these mental health issues?
I found the best supports have always been someone who is accessible and genuine in their care with me, whether it's a phone call or having a cup of coffee. I feel also it's important to know that all of us have experienced the loss in our lives, whether it's the loss of a job or a person. So if you can tap into what that is like, you can really connect sometimes with people in loss. Um, and I know it can be very scary to talk about situations like this, but it brings a lot of heartfelt peace to know that you have someone who understands you're going through stages, which you will all through your life, because
Right.
my son will be dead the rest of my life. So I will be angry some days, and some days I will be depressed. Some days I might be at a bargaining, and other days I might be at a denial. But all the times I go through those stages, I just know that I have somebody in the support of them, and that you also have been through those stages too. So understanding how we connect with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
And so, can you just share like some of the ways that the community can get involved and support the mission of Soul Survivors of Chicago?
Well, the first way is going to our website, Soul Survivors, spelled SOUL, survivors of Chicago.com. We have a wealth of information as it relates to what we've done, a lot of media information, and then you can sign up for our subscribe list, and we'll send out emails, which we do every week, giving information on what we're doing in the community, where we are, and promoting those platforms that really speak to this public health crisis and what we can do as a community. So we also share information and try to also support our other persons in the community doing this. And then email us. I love emails. I do respond. I do read them. I'm at ssofchicago@gmail.com. That's ssofchicago@gmail.com. And then we're on all social platform medias, the except for X. I'm not on X. We are
Okay,
not on X.
you're not
But
missing anything.
but you can find us at Soul Survivors of Chicago, or on Instagram at Soul Survivors of Shy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So
Oh, thank
just to kind of
you.
as we come to like a wrap up, I just again want to thank you so much for being here. I think that I personally, before, we talked, I kind of did my own little research and I listened to your son's story, and I definitely woke up this morning and I remembered that smile because he has such a beautiful smile and it lit up my day. It also obviously it made me sad because I just I found myself asking why, and because it's just such a beautiful spirit. And for the 19 years that he did live, geez, I know that he touched so many lives, and that was the purpose. And I'm so sorry that the purpose ended shorter than, you would have loved, but his life is serving so much purpose. And I thank you for that, for being a mother to just a wonderful, wonderful young man. So thank you for that. And I just want to encourage our listeners to just really get involved and have these tough conversations, because we know that they are not easy, and we know that they're not easy to have. So we want you to get involved, whether through supporting mental health initiatives or just learning how you can be advocates in your community. Or you can just have a conversation. Make sure your friends are okay. Make sure your family's okay. Ask how are you, but don't let I'm just okay be the final answer. Ask deeper questions. Ask how they're feeling, how they're thinking. And that is my 2 cents. Is there anything that you want to add to that? Please do.
Oh, you said it perfectly. I do want to just thank you again. This is such a great platform. Yeah, I will say that as a community, we're on the move, everyone. And in this new next 4 years, stay in tune with your community, the village can really be told by the children and what you see and what they're showing us. Stay connected with those who are advocating for mental health and mental wellness because this is a very challenging, complex world that we're dealing with. And by all means, there are ups and downs, but there are supports when the downs get to be too down. And when the ups are up, you have those people who are really in here trying to spread the word that, suicide um, does not have to be an option. It does not.
Okay. Tune in next time as we dive into another taboo topic where we will be breaking the silence, embracing the uncomfortable, and transforming lives, one taboo talk at a time. Bye, lovelies.